Welcome back to the Rise with Anita podcast, or welcome if you're new here. If you're new here, I am so excited to have you. And if you're old here, I am still equally so excited to have you. You guys have no idea how much I love the listeners, and I'm just so grateful for your support. But before we dive in, if you're new here, I just want you to know I truly believe that the conversations that we're meant to hear, the lessons, the nuggets, always find their way to us at the perfect moment. And for the new listener, this is a space where ambition meets embodiment, where soul meets strategy, because I don't believe we can do one without the other, and where we don't just talk about transformation, we learn how to actually live it. So I have a question for you guys. What if your life isn't reflecting your potential, but it's actually reflecting our standards? Not the goals we've set, not what's on our vision boards from back in January, our standards. Because every area of our lives, our relationships, our businesses, our health, our finances, even our peace, will eventually rise or fall to the standard we've set and normalized. But before we dive in, I like to arrive together. So if you're able to do so and you're not driving or operating heavy machinery, please gently place your feet on the floor. I would like you to go ahead and feel your body in your chair. And maybe place a hand on your heart or on your belly if you feel called. This is all about just connecting right now. And go ahead and release any tension in your shoulders or your jaw. And we're going to take a deep inhale through the nose for 4. We're going to hold for 4, 2, 3, 4. And we're going to release through the mouth for 6. One more time, we're going to take a deep inhale through the nose for 4. Hold for 4, 2, 3, 4, and release through the mouth for 6. And from that place, we arrive and we begin. Now, as we are entering this episode, I want you to think about where in my life have I been accepting less than what I know I'm capable of or what I know I deserve. And before you get into a self-critical, self-judgment place, I want you to just be open, get curious. But we're not looking to fix in this right moment. So here's the thing. For a long time, I myself had confused standards with perfection. So I thought high standards meant you have to get it right. You have to always produce. Any high achievers listening to this are going, yep, that checks the box. You have to always achieve. But you see, I've started to see standards completely differently. They're not about coming from a place of pressure, but they are about self-respect. They're how I've started to really protect who I'm becoming. Now, I am still working through this. So in real time, we are having this conversation, and yet I am still refining what my standards look like. Because as a female, if we're being honest, there are moments where we might compromise our standards for the sake of our relationships. So I am still a work in progress. I don't want you to listen to this and go, oh, she's already got this down. No. But you see, the reality is our strongest standards are actually decided before they're ever tested. So an example of this would be If I'm dysregulated, I'm not answering that text or that email. I don't just abandon my workout schedule because I'm busy. In fact, let me use an example for this one. Real time. I just got back from a trip to LA as I'm recording this, and I literally only missed one workout, which was a rest day, in the course of that time that I was gone, which was a week. Because my standard was, I don't care if I'm driving 4 hours back and forth from LA to Vegas. My standard is, if I have a gym session booked, we are going. I am moving my body before I sit in a car for 4 hours. Another one would be, I don't tolerate conversations that disrespect me. Or I don't betray my intuition for approval. This is a big one, because how often have you actually had that inner knowing? Something is off here. Something is actually doesn't feel aligned, but you want to fit in. You want to feel like you belong, so you betray that. And then later on, you're like, ah, damn, if I would have listened to my intuition. What is that? It's you not trusting yourself. And notice, none of these are really goals. They come back down to our identity. Because here's the thing. Our standards reveal what we're believing we're worth. And that's going to be a line that stings. So I'm going to run that back for you. Our standards reveal what we believe we're worth. And yes, notice I'm saying we, not you, because this is universal. Here's the thing. We think that our standards are like a conscious decision, but most aren't. They're what comes up autopilot. So if you have inconsistent relationships, if you're constantly stressed out, if you accept being disrespected, if you feel a little burnt out, that one's going to sting. If you allow people to constantly cross boundaries, it's worth asking, what part of me believes I deserve this? Here's the thing. There's a difference between becoming quote unquote nitpicky and standing up for yourself. In fact, I can use a beautiful example of this because I had a situation come up and a family member of mine got a phone call and it was, hey, can you volunteer at this church gathering? And she looks at me and she's like, I don't know, can I? And I was like, I don't know, can you? And after she gets off the phone, after having already agreed, she literally goes, I have so many things I want to do. I need to focus on my business. I want to get into a relationship. I need to focus on my health. And this is taking away from that time. And it really made me look at that and go, well, firstly, you're people pleasing. And secondly, if this is such an issue, why don't you call the person back and say, you know what, I'm busy that day? Because the reality is the option to say no was there. But when we are used to people pleasing, or when we are used to being the person that's willing to compromise rather than stay disciplined on what we want, we end up being resentful later. So, if we're looking at it from an identity standpoint, though, our next level, our next identity has a new set of standards. Usually. You may have things you carry forward, habits that have served you, relationships, etc. But a lot of times, for example, the one building a business, needs different standards than the one who's dreaming about building a business or is still stuck in her corporate career. The woman who is creating a healthy relationship, a loving relationship, has different standards of the version of her that was accepting the breadcrumbs. The woman who's leading has different standards around energy, her calendar, her conversations, her boundaries. And it's not because she's better. It's because she's protecting what matters to her. And going back to conversations, I know I'm going a little all over the place with this episode, but I'm not just talking about the conversations she's having with others. I'm talking about how she speaks to herself. What is it you say about yourself? What is the thoughts that you are constantly repeating about yourself? How do you even see yourself? These are all things that are needing to shift as our standards are rising and our identities are shifting. Because if you don't have a self-image of, I am worthy to take care of myself, I am loving, I am beautiful, I am whatever you place behind I am is your identity. So how do you see yourself? How do you actually feel about yourself? These are all questions worth sitting with. And I'm not saying you have to get it all perfect because we all have our days, but it is worth noting what percentage of the time are you actually looking at yourself going, I don't have whatever, because you're going from a place of lack. For some people, it might be the money, it might be the success, it might be a certain body type. How often are you looking at what you don't have, but ignoring the qualities in you that you have that are to be loved, to be admired, to really be emphasized? And here's a beautiful little homework piece going off the cuff here. If you have moments where you're uncertain about your own qualities, because maybe you have been someone who's trained themselves to not see themselves in their fullest expression, that's when you can start leaning on people. And I'm not asking for validation. I'm going to suggest going to 4 to 7 people who know you very well. And you ask them, what do you see in me? What is it that draws you to me? I want an honest answer. And with that, you can also say, where do I still need to grow? Because most of those who love us actually see us in such a higher light. But then they're also able to call out, hey, you would be 2 millimeters better if you just did this. You would be so improved if you just found your voice more, owned up to your knowledge, owned your value, had a little more confidence in what you have to offer. So that was a completely different tangent. But here's the thing. We often think standards create rigidity. It's boring. But here's the thing. Our standards actually create freedom. This is one that surprised me because where I thought life would be rigid and boring. And here's another thing. Our nervous system actually really likes the boring. It loves consistency. It loves knowing what is coming up next. So it creates peace. Because when we have the standards, fewer decisions have to be made constantly. You already know what you need to do. You've decided, you're following through on it. You don't negotiate with yourself on whether or not you'll follow through. You just do. Now, is there room for flexibility? Yes, I'll give you an example. I work out about 6 to 7 days a week now. And some mornings, it's maybe I'm going to allow myself to rest today. Luckily, a lot of times I do follow up and follow through on that 7 day routine because that is my standard. But if I have to drop it down to 6 or 5 days, I will allow that because I'm not being overly rigid in this area. So I will literally wake up in the morning and go, does my knee feel fine? I have a little bit of knee issues. So does my knee feel fine? Have I maybe jumped or have I been in heels all day? Have I misstepped on a step? And a lot of times, if it feels good, we're going to the gym because that is my standard. If I need to take a pause because I don't want to risk injury, I do so. But the decision isn't, am I doing it because do I feel like it? It's, do I feel like I'm going to injure myself? There's a little bit of a difference there, but there's still that standard of if I feel good, if I feel like it's not something that's going to be an issue, we're going. Because I'm not negotiating with that aspect. It is my standard to go. So we simply live by what we've chosen. So here's the thing. I'm going to give you a few reflection questions. This is great if you're listening to this later on, and they will be listed in the show notes. And so I want you to think about, where have I been lowering my standards to avoid disappointing others? In the case I gave earlier, the church situation, it's I'm not going to follow through on working on my business this day. So I can go help at the church because I don't want to be seen as, oh, it's not participating at church and functions. Just a solid example. Think about what that is for you. What standard would make my biggest difference in the next 90 days? Where am I saying yes when I actually mean no? People pleasers, this is for you. One of my favorite new sayings, I have to say, is I can't commit to this right now. Because I have literally been so much of a person who's like, yes to everything as a habit. So when I'm speaking about this, I've been there. But I had someone that I learned from where it was anytime something is just not what they want to do, it's, I can't commit to this right now. And I was like, I'm going to steal that and actually integrate that into my own life because I learned a lesson there. What does the woman I'm becoming simply no longer negotiate? What does she no longer tolerate? So these questions will be listed down below, but really get clear. Like, take the time to think about, what is this new version of myself calling in? And I want you to notice there has been a theme. We've been talking about resetting, and now we're talking about standards and what we're accepting and the embodiment of those. And the reason I'm doing it at this time of year is it's never too late to reset. You can reset at any point. It's just like we just had the Lion's Gate recently. And I always say, while it's a very potent energy to work with, you can literally manifest at any time, regardless of what's going on in the cosmos. We get to choose. But what really actually comes down to whether or not you're going to manifest something, identity, energy, and whether or not you believe it's possible. So I'm just going to leave that here. I want you to remember, I don't really think that our next chapter requires a brand new version of ourselves. You're not trying to be a 360 different version of you. What you're doing is protecting the version you're already becoming. And maybe that's what the core of these standards really are. They're not rules, they're not restrictions. They're promises to yourself. Promises that say, I know who I'm becoming. I'm going to choose to act even if I have doubt. I'm going to live like her now, even if I don't see it. So if this conversation resonated with you, I'd love to know what's one standard you're raising in your own life. Send me a message on Instagram or share this episode with someone who's ready to stop negotiating with her worth and know that the life she's meant to build is on its way. And until the next conversation, I'll see you in the next episode.